Sorry.
That's all right.
All right, everyone. Just think we should get started with our last session for the day. Matthew Grounds is from Expression Australia and is an audiologist who will provide some information about hearing losses and the devices available and all sorts of other exciting things. So thank you so much for coming.
Okay, thanks, Natalie, and congratulations to the hardcore who are still here. It's obviously been an exhausting few days, and I'll try to move through pretty quickly on this. And I'm really, like your last great speaker, Kate, I'm interested also in what's relevant to you guys more than what I've got to say. So if there's things about hearing or audiology or services like that, that's what I would like to know about. And as Natalie was just saying to me, it's a bit ironical in a way, but the people who this might be most relevant to are probably the people who may have decided this wasn't the right sort of venue for them. People who's got significant hearing loss might think they're not going to get much out of a session like you've been holding. But anyway, I'll go ahead and, on that note, we do like to work with technology, the latest technology. So if anybody does need to borrow something, I have got this available. If you wanted to come and get it, it doesn't even need batteries. It's so good. So I'm from Expression Australia, and I'm guessing that not too many people. Oh, where are we? Let's see. Where we go from beginning? Is it? I can do it that way, maybe. What do you want me to do?
Good old PowerPoint.
Oh, sorry, I think it's frozen.
Got one there. Okay, all right. Yeah, okay, so Expression Australia is the name of an organisation. We've only had this name for about 5 or 6 weeks. Until then, we were VicDeaf, the Victorian Deaf Society. So we've been around for about 135 years under different names, but VicDeaf changed its name about 6 weeks ago to Expression Australia to represent that we do a lot more than services just for deaf. And Expression Australia has a range of services, employment services, audiology services, some services aimed at the cultural deaf community who use Auslan as their first language, interpreting and so on. I won't go into how we came up with the new name, that's not that relevant here today, but I'll just talk a little bit about hearing loss. What does it mean? I'm not going to go into much of this today because I really want to keep it relevant to for you guys, but I guess and I don't claim to be any sort of expert on NF2 at all, but I do understand that hearing loss can become one of the things that people deal with, and especially where there's acoustic neuromas involved, that can mean you can lose a lot of hearing. You can lose all your hearing in one ear, and you could lose all your hearing in both ears. And then what are the things that we could do to help people with that situation? But I guess the most common situation with hearing loss is the sort of hearing loss that that we all kind of experience a bit, especially if the conditions aren't ideal. So the sort of hearing loss that you get when you go into a noisy restaurant or pub or bar or something like that, even a lunchroom, everyone's talking, you can really struggle to catch what people are saying. And that's the most common presentation people come to us with, is to say, I don't think I'm deaf, but I'm not hearing like I used to. And funnily enough, it's often the family that will be the ones who are dragging the person in. It's often the wife who said, I'm not leaving until, he gets a hearing aid, because he doesn't admit it, but he's driving us mad. And we know that the world is becoming a noisier place. We know that, restaurants and bars are deliberately designing themselves for ambient noise. The architects will admit that. It's all part of trying to create the right atmosphere. It's partly also about trying to make sure you don't stay too long. You can only bear it for an hour and a half, and then you've got to leave. So we know that discriminating speech is the hardest, is the difficulty. We can help people to hear more through devices like hearing aids, but it's actually about helping people to discriminate and understand speech in different conditions. And we know that there's complications to do with being able to tolerate loud sounds. A lot of people with NF2 report tinnitus, ringing in the ears, and the effect that can have. And just that ability to concentrate when you have to put so much effort into listening is what we know about. And the sort of research that's been happening in the last couple of years has proven beyond doubt that the mental effort involved in listening for people with hearing loss is much higher, so that the amount of brain activity involved, people will say, I can go out, I can go to a party, I can go to a restaurant, but I'm completely exhausted after an hour, or I can go to work, I can cope, but by the end of the day, I'm done. I've used up all the listening energy I've got. So as I said, it's things like the acoustics and positioning yourself in relation to noise, the lighting, distractions, how far away the other speakers are, and then it's a question of what equipment can help. And then a lot of what we do is work with people on trying to help them work out ways to communicate better with the people they need to. So we'll usually work with people within a family or within a couple or even within a workplace setting to help people understand what do you need to get the message to help other people understand what they need to do to help you to hear better. So there's a lot of work that we do on that sort of in that area. Remembering communication is obviously a two-way process. It's not just about somebody not being able to hear, it's about what's going on in that setup that can make communication better. So a lot of what we do as audiologists is work with hearing aids and cochlear implants. And they're good and they're certainly getting better. They don't provide normal hearing, but they do a lot to make it easier for people to hear. Hearing aids come in all shapes and sizes these days. They can be as discreet as you want, or they can, if they're really high-powered ones, they still tend to be a bit larger, but it's more about what's going on inside the hearing aid that makes the difference with them. And the sort of things that are being put into them nowadays are directional microphones that'll pick up in one direction and keep the sounds from behind much lower. Noise reduction in the processing of the sound in the hearing aid, and wind noise. One of the best things we're getting now is connectivity, where your hearing aid will connect directly to your smartphone, for instance, or to your TV, and will take a signal straight from there, and people are really loving that sort of connectivity. Hearing aids, a lot of them are rechargeable now. They work on apps on your phone, so you can use them as remote controls, or you can listen to podcasts through your phone, that sort of thing. And the thing that's just happening in the last sort of 12 months or more is where we can program people's hearing aids remotely through teleaudiology, where people can let us know, oh, my hearing aid's not quite right for that situation, and the audiologist back in the hearing centre can make changes and send them through that person's smartphone to the hearing aid. The sort of thing that's happening in the future, I was at a conference where they were talking about some amazing research into trying to work out through EEG measurements to help identify the person that you're trying to listen to in that room and where your attention is. And they've actually worked out how to build an EEG into the mould of a hearing aid so they can in real time measure your attention. Implantables are becoming bigger. I know some in NF2, one of brainstem implants might be something that's being tried these days, not necessarily with a whole lot of great success yet. Hearing aids are connecting to all sorts of things. Has anyone heard of this if this then that stuff there? That it's a new sort of internet protocol where every device you have is going to talk to every other device. Someone's at your doorbell, it's going to show up on your phone. There's going to be a signal in your hearing aid saying your brother's at the front door. It's a bit scary. That's the future. Okay, a lot of what we do working with people is to try to find other assistive devices that might help in particular situations. Now, we do hearing aids, not everyone wants them, but even people who get them might have other things where they need amplified phones. We do a lot of alarm clocks with the bed shaker, so that for people who don't hear a regular alarm clock, it'll wake them up in the night. It can connect with a smoke alarm, connect to the doorbell, that sort of thing. A lot of deaf people, if they don't use hearing aids or implants, they still need some way to connect, to know that someone's at the door or to get up in time in the morning, that sort of thing. Or baby cry alarms, or all sorts of things like that. Loop systems have been around forever, for a long time. That's where a theatre like this might have a loop installed, and people who use hearing aids can lock into that. You can get them in cinemas and churches and concert halls and things. And thinking about support sources, I know you've had a session on the NDIS today, and I hope that was encouraging. I've been working in it for 5 years since it began, and I can tell you they're still making it up as they go along. And for people with hearing loss, it's not that easy, but a lot of deaf people are getting supports through NDIS. For people who may, if you can get onto NDIS and have hearing included in that, then you certainly can get things like hearing aids and other devices that you need. There's the Commonwealth Hearing Services program that's been around for a long time that for people on a pension, so disability pension or age pension, can get hearing services funded, and otherwise you're probably looking at self-funding. At Expression Australia, we have our audiology services where we do hearing aids, as I said, and assistive devices. We have tinnitus management for people who need that extra support there. Another service we have is what we call Living Well with Hearing Loss. So that's where we do work with a family or with your workplace to help everyone understand what you need to do to get that confidence to be upfront about your needs or to help other people understand what they need to do. We're getting people funding for that sort of service through NDIS, which is good, because some people do find they need quite a few sessions to really get the confidence to deal with their hearing loss. We have employment services through the Disability Employment Scheme that support a lot of people with hearing loss and vision loss into employment very successfully. We also have Auslan training. We have an interpreting services and video and captioning, as we're experiencing today, as well as individual case management for people who need that extra level of care, similar to what Paula was talking about from Carla was talking about from Able Australia. All right, so I'm happy to, I'm interested if there's any questions or sort of comments about services for people with NF2 that relate to hearing. Expression Australia, Expression Audiology, we have clinics across Melbourne and in Geelong. These days we're providing some services through Skype, for instance, even interstate or inter-country areas where people want some advice or follow-up service. So any sort of questions that you might have or comments that relate to the hearing side of things? I know you were asking before about hearing in the background noise in cocktail.
Personally suffer from a thing called suffer with you cannot background noise. So if I go to a function at night, older, the that's when I was therapy. Etc. And the
Yeah, well, look, what I can tell you is hearing aids used to be pretty much useless for that situation. Hearing aids are getting much, much better at processing a voice in amongst the background noise. And the people that I've been fitting, just say in the last 12 months, people who've used hearing aids for a long time are saying, wow, these hearing aids are much, much better. I can now go to the food court, you know, with my wife and we can talk and I can now hear her. They're not saying it makes the background noise go away, but they're saying I can hear the person I want to. So there's no doubt about it, hearing aids used to be pretty useless at that, but they are getting much better. And the kind of research that I was talking about where they're actually sort of honing in is going to make things better in future that way.
I'm one of those people who go into a restaurant and tell
Yeah.
otherwise I won't pay the bill.
Yeah, you got to protest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you. If you want to come and talk to me afterwards, I'm welcome. You're welcome to. Thanks.
Question for you. Are you linked, Expression Australia has come from Vic Deaf, but are there other organisations that you're linked with nationally or in other states, perhaps?
Yeah, look, there are deaf societies in all the states that do offer services through NDIS. So, and some of them have got more in the way of audiology type services. I know South Australia does. But there are sort of other, probably similar organisations across Australia. Yeah, not-for-profit organisations.
We deal with or have a relationship with the Shepherd
Yep,
in New South
as a paediatric service,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, correct. And a lot of our community. Yeah, the young.
Yeah, and Melbourne we're actually an adult-focused organisation, but there's paediatric or family-based organisations here as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very, very much for your time out of your weekend to come and speak.
Welcome.